businesses, most of them have no clue.
Welcome back. We are joined by James Burchill, and James has an awful lot of expertise in the area of social media. James, you have a passion for technology and communication ever since you were a little guy. We can talk about that because, you know,
It's been a
age
while.
9, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you've worked for some really big companies. You worked with Microsoft and IBM and Dell and all of these things, which makes you the expert on social media. Thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Mm-hmm. We are going to discover all about social media, Joe.
I'm looking forward to that because
Yeah.
it's the newest buzzword when it comes to, you know, technology, computers. It's all social media. Obviously, with the big famous movie that came out last year, got a lot of more attention to it. But tell us a little bit, first of all, what is social media?
That's a great question, and I'd have to say the ink is still wet on the subject of what social media is. It's a methodology and a mindset. It's a way of thinking about certain technologies, and it's also a suite of technologies. It's really about how you use various platforms and technologies to support that which we do naturally, which is communicate and connect. But one of the big definitions for social media is it's really about the content that we create. So typically a social media platform is usually filled with content that users create, not companies. And that's usually one of the biggest identifiers. So if you see content by other people, it's typically a social platform.
Social platform, social media. But there are certain things that people will identify. Social media. Let's get all the names out there. Because you told me one today that I had never heard of. We'll start with Facebook. Keep going.
The biggies, or the big four, I think, are Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and I'm now blanking on the fourth one. Isn't that wonderful?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
We have
of course.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
And you told me another one.
Foursquare.
Have you heard of Foursquare?
Foursquare. No, I'm not familiar with Foursquare.
Foursquare is a social media platform that is tied to geolocation. In other words, it's not just out there on the web, it actually takes note of where you are and allows you to check in. And the really cool part about being able to check in is when you check in, it ties your physical space and tells all of your friends where you are so they can find you and maybe want to connect with you for a drink after work, or, you know, for instance, I checked in when I was sitting in the green room. So about 25,000 people knew I was sitting in the green room.
So James, let me ask you, because I've heard before that even email is getting a bit outdated when it comes to quickness of being able to respond. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, a program like Foursquare, where you can tell someone instantly where you are, it almost makes it seem that we're evolving at such a fast pace. Would you say that this is the next step in the evolution of the internet as a whole?
Actually, it's a very good question, because it is. What's happening was we had what they called version 1 of the internet, which was you write and you publish. Version 2 of the internet was blogging and forums where people could communicate, and you had bidirectional communication. Version 3 hasn't quite come around yet, but you might say that's really what we're experiencing now. They've socialized it. So now we have a lot more interactivity, a sort of clustering of information being added together. And yes, it is evolving, but the latest evolution is localization. So it's not just information that's floating around the internet, it's local information, because more than 60% of the searches that occur online now include what they call a localization geotag. In other words, restaurants in Burlington.
Right.
Not just restaurants, but in Burlington, or in Oakville, or in Milton, or wherever it is. They're adding in those phrases, and that is allowing individuals to find a lot more targeted information.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You know what just confuses me? I thought I actually was starting to get it, but you know, this is confusing me.
Just when you get it, like the more you you open the door, the more you realize how big the room is.
That's right. That's right. So what are the real? I mean, what are the real uses of it? It is a communication tool. It is a marketing tool. But why would people want to use it?
Well, one of the reasons that people like using it, and this perhaps is maybe maybe not one of the best reasons, is it allows people to perhaps be a little more brave than they truly are. That can be a double-edged sword, but it does allow you to accelerate through the steps in connecting with people and creating relationships. It allows you to go from stranger to friend quickly. One of the things I say about technology is it augments what you do naturally. In fact, social media and the technology does not change anybody's behavior. All it does is facilitate that which we already wanted or needed to do.
Get your mind around that one, Dad.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, we've always been around the water cooler. We all gossip.
Yeah.
I mean, it's human nature. I mean, we tell stories. If you actually go back into history and you take a look at what has actually happened, we tell stories. Before we were able to write things down, it was always stories. Most of the stories were cautionary tales because there's no survival value in telling anyone a happy tale. But don't run with scissors, that one gets passed around.
Oh my gosh.
Social media has a very similar underpinning because we like to, I say gossip, but obviously I'm being mildly facetious. But no, it does. It allows us to connect, and it allows us to share stories, and it makes us all, equal.
Right.
It's fascinating. It seems almost like a paradox as well, because you picture someone being in their room, door closed in front of a computer. You'd think that they're being antisocial, whereas thanks to social media, like you just mentioned, strangers become friends instantly.
Yeah.
In fact, back to your question about the evolution, right now most people access the internet via the desktop computer or the laptop computer. But with the evolution of smartphones, tablets, I mean, I'm a huge Mac fan these days. I mean, I was mainframe, and then I went into PCs, and but these days it's all about Macs for me. But regardless of that, mobilization, literally breaking away from the desktop and being able to communicate anywhere, anytime, anyhow, is changing it entirely. In fact, there's going to be more mobile devices, I believe there almost is, accessing the internet in the next year or two than there are computers. Now my stats might be a little off, but then the next wave, mobile.
Really? Okay. All right, I have my desktop, I have my laptop, I have my notebook, I have my BlackBerry.
You're stacked.
I'm stacked.
That's right.
I am well stacked, and I still don't know what to do with LinkedIn, Facebook. I know how to use my email, obviously, because you're here today because of that.
Yes.
Right. So, do we know who should be using what, or really does it matter?
It does, actually. And if you don't mind, I want to just back up a sec, because you brought up email, and I don't think I fully addressed the question. The top three major, shall we say, technologies of use are email, social media, and search. Those are the three main streams on the internet right now. And email will never, I'm prepared to say never go away, because anyone that signs up for a social media account, you need an email account to do it.
Of course, chicken before the egg, right?
Yeah.
But back to your question about the various platforms and perhaps the best ways to use them. Each one has a particular use and attracts certain kinds of people in certain kinds of circumstances. If we're talking purely social or in a pure fun environment, then Twitter works quite well because it's telegraphic. Be brief, be bright, be gone. It's like that. Facebook tends to be a lot more richer, more engaging, allows you to add multimedia, videos and pictures. YouTube, obviously full motion video. And Flickr, that's all social pictures. And there's so many different levels. And when you understand what you're using them for, and you understand the market and who you're talking to, it becomes quite clear which one works best.
Perfect place to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to explore a little bit more about this, and we're going to talk to James about etiquette around social media. We'll be right back after this.
Honesty. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us. We're speaking with James Burchill, and we're talking about demystifying social media. So when we were last on, you were telling us a little bit about the different uses of the internet. We talked about email, we talked about Twitter a bit. Let's talk about some ways that you can use social media in an employment sphere. LinkedIn, I think, is probably best used for that, would you say?
Business-to-business communication, most people will use LinkedIn for that, or professional peer-to-peer communication. It is one of the largest in North America. It is not the largest business one internationally. There's one in England or out of Europe called Academy.
Yeah. Never heard of that one.
Well, you wouldn't do over here.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's lots of things that we won't hear about unless we actually start moving about. I mean, Google is the largest search engine west, but over in Asia, it doesn't even count.
Really?
Baidu is the big one over there.
Baidu.
Baidu.
Let's Baidu.
I just can't read any of the writing because it's all. But no, back to LinkedIn. It is a professional peer-to-peer social networking platform which allows you to put your resume online and allows you to actually show your history, allows you to connect with other individuals within your company. But more importantly, it really does provide a phenomenal platform. It takes your resume and your networking ability to a whole new level. Quite literally, you can have peers and clients give you testimonials, and that is powerful.
Sure it is.
You get social proof and you get credibility because if you look down a person's LinkedIn profile and you see somebody who obviously has certain clout, so to speak, then that counts.
Yeah, wow. There's a whole social etiquette around social media, and you've actually written a book called, where is it? Social Media, excuse me, isn't social if you're shouting. And well, first of all, you said there's a story around the color.
Yes.
Here are my colors. Actually, they work well on the set, I'd say.
Perfect.
Don't you think?
Absolutely.
So, what about the colors?
Well,
there's the psychology or something.
There is psychology behind it, and there's also a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke because social media is unsuccessful if you're shouting. I mean, can you imagine walking into a room in a party and going up to a complete bunch of strangers and then going on a major pitch? Well, if you do that, it just won't work. You'd be ejected.
Yes.
But if people use technology, especially social media, to do such things, and they wonder why they're having bad results.
Right.
Well, the name of the book and the cover color was designed, obviously, so it would cause people to obviously ask me the questions.
Right.
But the book stands out.
Right.
You leave that on a desktop and you walk into a room, you could literally just scan the room. I mean,
Look at that book.
It jumps
That's right.
out.
What's this all
That's
about?
right.
It's shouting.
It works, James.
That's right. It does. It does.
That's my English sense of humor.
Yes. Well, it is. It is. So, is social media social? You heard Joe talking about how we have this perception of people behind their computers not really being social, and in fact, they may be more social than we are sitting here talking about it.
Again, I would remind everyone listening and watching that social media really does amplify that which we are. If you are a naturally social person, then it's going to take it to a whole new level. If you're a bit reserved, then it will probably allow you to connect in ways that you might not feel comfortable initially, and help and facilitate. But I actually believe that social media, other than being a social platform, actually is counterintuitive. It does make people antisocial. If you're not careful, you can use it as a shield.
Right.
Remember, it's supposed to connect you. It's supposed to help you do things, not insulate you. Technology is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master.
Very interesting, and you can consider as well that there could be some disingenuity, is that the word, or not being true to yourself in the sense, like you mentioned, the mask. It's always funny. You can imagine someone's writing a personal ad and says single white male who's 6'4" and 185 pounds. I'm describing myself, but the reality is that there is that opportunity for people to actually not be true to themselves when they can sort of mask it behind it.
It's becoming less of an issue these days. I mean, it will always probably be. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way, right? But the truth tends to out. Your authenticity will come through. One of the things I teach when I'm teaching and advising clients on social media is you need to find your voice. You need to be authentic. You cannot create artifice and fabrication and attempt to be something you're not. You cannot continue and carry it along as a long-term strategy, because people will get a sense of it. I don't know how they do it. Maybe it's, you know, like dogs who can sense thunderstorms coming. We just can feel it. We can sense it. You'll start reading stuff. You'll start sort of connecting, and you'll be looking at all these different channels, and you will eventually get a sense that something's not right here. There will be a sort of a disconnect, and you've got to be really, really careful. You've got to be authentic. You must not pretend to be something you're not. You will get found out, and then you will get flamed. And that's where people on the internet will actively go out of their way to pillory you and show you up and criticize you and destroy your reputation.
Eject you from the party.
And it's very hard to
Actually,
rebuild
that's
your
a good
reputation when your reputation gets damaged.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The power of social media can make you or break you.
It's about 10 times faster to actually take someone down than it is to build them up. And that's just a very conservative number. When was the last time you Googled yourself?
I usually try to at least 4 times a day.
Okay.
I was going to say, now
I have a bit of an
honest,
ego
Joe.
problem.
Yeah. You haven't seen his
No, that's cool.
promo pieces. Yes.
They're great watching if you want to go to my
I
YouTube
will.
page.
I will look them up. But the thing is, if you haven't actively created content that is positive in nature and presents the image that you want people to see, then what will happen is one person with an axe to grind can take you down. And then when anything you do after the fact will be considered at a discount, because everyone just says, oh, it's reactionary. So proactive creation of content, social media, it all ties back to, you know, managing the message, brand reputation, even for people. You don't just need this for companies.
Really?
It's amazing you said that, at people branding. I mean, you know, in sort of everyday life, you'd think, I mean, we are all salespeople of ourselves. We sell our own image, whether you're at work, whether you're in a social situation, but now through social media, it's so much more important to be a marketer for yourself and to brand yourself, because you're in control of the content, right?
Well, you brought up LinkedIn. Let's just say you're an individual, you're not a corporation, and you know, you're now looking to look for a new job. You do need to be seriously managing your own online reputation. It's not just your website, it's all of your web assets. So you need to look at how you are perceived. You need to look at your resume. You need to look at your references. I have a stepdaughter in second year at university. She's just going to be coming home for summer soon. And I warn her and all her friends, frosh foolishness today may cost you a job tomorrow. Online, everything is eternal.
Yes.
And recruiters are looking.
Yeah.
They're looking, and they can round file you even before even getting anywhere near you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We were talking about the whole email address and all that kind of thing. And there's even reputation by the email address you have, not just your name, but who is your provider and that kind of thing, which I think is so fascinating. It's confusing, really, especially for us people who have had ours forever and a day, and apparently we need to change it, I'm told. But it's fascinating that all of these things are things you have to consider when you start a social media connection. You have to recognize where it's going to go down the road.
Absolutely. Again, let's just for a second talk about, say, teenagers at university. I mean, it applies to anybody. You know, when we were young, I mean, believe me, if the things I did when I was younger were on the internet, we probably wouldn't be talking. Who is this guy? But think about it for a second. Let's say you're in your late teens or even whenever, and you decide to get very militant about something and get involved. You have a voice and you want to express yourself. Well, that's going to be there for a long time, you know, and it really does come back to haunt you. You've got to be so careful. You've got to think about 10, 20, 30 years out when you're making decisions today. I do not envy teenagers or anyone who's just venturing into this arena, and that's just kids. I mean, businesses. They're still, most of them have no clue.
Great note to end on, James. Thank you very much for being with us. You have the opportunity to get James's book, Social Media Isn't Social If You're Shouting. We were going to tell you how to do that when we come back. Thank you very much. I think you've brought a lot of information to us, and I'm going to go Google myself when we're finished.
My pleasure.
I'm going to do the 5th time. Thanks, James.
Thank you.